You want to move on to
The dreaded
the dreaded
D.W.
DW.
Griffith. I mean, I did think his movies from this year were more watchable.
That's true. They were not about the Civil War. Thank
Yeah.
God.
I'm just like, just make crime movies, man. Like, that's a much better lane for you to be in. He's not going to listen to me. One, because he's dead, and also because he's most famous for making a Civil War movie. But yeah, there are some pretty enjoyable ones from him this year.
Yeah. I quite liked his output. Again, I breathed a bit of a sigh of relief
Yeah,
after this.
yeah, me too. I was like, after each one, I was like, oh.
Um, well, we could talk about the Massacre, which
Right, is the most problematic of them all.
it's the most problematic, but like I think it shows a lot of his chops that he's gotten
Yeah.
from making all of these war movies. It's a movie that I was really impressed by in comparison to a lot of the kind of bigger epics, the Italian movies, how this shot giant battle scenes but made them feel so much more intense and personal. Whereas the Italian movies, they just shoot 200 people from really far away, and there's no it feels like you're watching nothing in a way. Whereas I was noticing the way that there's a few battle scenes in this movie, The Massacre, and a lot of it is composed out of these like sensibly arranged small scenes within the battle. So you're getting a real sense of who is in it and what is happening. And when it cuts to the big scenes, it makes those big scenes feel even more meaningful.
Yeah.
And so he's shot a lot of Civil War battle scenes, and so I think he's actually got a really good sense for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is maybe like the biggest scope of a movie that we've seen. It's definitely up there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with just the sheer number of people on screen, the fact that a lot of them are on horses, kicking up clouds of dust and like shooting guns in giant wide shots shot from like up a mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like intercutting between those huge shots, which are like show you all this spectacle and all of these extras, but then intercutting that with the stuff that's like right in your face, or right in the face of the actors.
Yeah, I almost didn't watch this one, so I appreciate you telling me to.
The first 5 minutes of it, though, do feel like a comedy, which I don't think is intentional.
Because it's just like a...
Well, it's setting up yet another like love triangle sort of thing, which I'm like, I watched this one and I was like, D.W. Griffith definitely like lost a girlfriend to someone else and just won't let go. Like, this for sure happened to him because he puts it in everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, there's like the setup of the plot is there's a woman living off on the frontier, and there's this like military scout that wants to marry her, but then there's also this sort of cultured, well-dressed city man, I guess. And he ends up also proposing to her about 5 minutes later, less than that, like 30 seconds later. And then the military scout hears it like from the front door, and kind of rushes out with his gun out, and then like sees them two hugging, and he's like, "Oh, never mind," and like puts his gun away in the background without them seeing him. And then immediately afterwards, like she says yes to the other guy's proposal, and they hug. But when they hug, the man grabs like a bunch of branches from a tree. Like they're standing next to it, a bunch of branches, and he grabs onto the branches when he hugs her. And it cuts away right as he's like realizes it and starts like swatting the branches away. But it like cuts right as that's starting, so it's like, oh, we don't need to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the initial proposal was kind of funny because he asks her like, "Do you want to marry me and go out west?" And you can see her reaction. She's kind of like, "Eh,"
she's like, not really.
And then she gets a better proposal 5 minutes later, and
Yeah.
she jumps on that.
seconds later, like immediately afterwards.
Yeah. She's like, let me step outside to think about it. And then.
I think 2 years passed through intertitle.
Mm-hmm.
And the military scout is part of a cavalry party that just decides to massacre a Native American camp, seemingly for no reason.
Yeah. Surprise attack, just these people chilling.
And I mean, the movie at the very least kind of depicts the Native Americans as human beings, with like babies getting killed in the gunfire.
Yeah, it really lingers on the shot of their dead bodies. I think it's, not. It's not on this guy's side exactly.
Yeah, it's not trying to make it seem morally justified in any way.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the movie after that is sort of more focused on the counterattack, the revenge massacre, as it were, which feels just a little bit more D.W. Griffithy.
Well, I mean, I think this movie speaks to what we saw in Ramona, which is that he has some real sympathy for Native Americans, and he doesn't see them with as much hate as he does black people.
Yeah.
Because I think this movie isn't really taking a side exactly.
Yeah, it is much more in the sort of war bad film,
Yeah.
which he also has done a lot of those where he's not really taking a moral side on one way or the other. He's just sort of like, this conflict is bad because it's killing people.
Yeah, and there's a big battle, and the woman now has a child, and before the battle starts, her husband has to go away for some reason, and so the initial suitor ends up like protecting her and the baby, and in this very long, drawn-out battle, which I think is done pretty well, he eventually just, like, they're all kind of cornered, encircled by Native Americans on horses, and they're just getting picked off one by one until they turn into, like, a big pile of dead people. And so he finally dies on top of her, and she's, like, huddled under these dead bodies. And when the husband gets back, he thinks that she's dead, and then he goes, "No, wait!" And they peel off the initial suitor.
Well,
and then...
yeah, there's a really great shot where he's looking at this like mound of dead bodies, and then we just see a hand emerge from the center of it, and they're like, "Oh no, she's still alive!" But it's the reveal of that I thought was well done.
Yeah.
Most of the other movies that I think we watched from DW from this year are like crime films.
Yeah, contemporary crime films.